Are you financially free or just playing the paycheck to paycheck game? Most guys think financial freedom is about earning more or saving more, working harder, grinding it out. But the brutal truth, you can kill yourself working, juggling 2 jobs, sacrificing vacations for years, and still be broke, stressed, and feeling utterly powerless. It's not your salary that's holding you back. It's invisible traps you're blind to. I know this because I fell into almost all of them. Worse, I didn't realize it until the damage was done. Looking back, I wish someone had told me that freedom is less about how much you earn and everything about what you're unknowingly doing wrong. These mistakes seem harmless, some even smart, but they're silent anchors dragging you down, drowning you while you convince yourself you're fine. I'll expose 25 of these sneaky saboteurs, and if you relate to even one, it could be costing you decades of progress. Let's be clear. Ignoring even a single one of these could delay your financial independence by years. Stick with me. The 25th is the one almost every man realizes far too late. But we'll get there. First, ask yourself, are you truly in control or just surviving, hoping next month will be better? Breathe. What if the thing holding you back isn't out there, but something you're repeating without even noticing? Meet John. 35, 50-hour work weeks. Everyone thinks he's doing great. Bills paid on time. Rent always covered. Even a few nice dinners sprinkled in. From the outside, John looks responsible, maybe even ahead of the curve. But there's a secret nobody sees. The reason John secretly panics over unexpected expenses. He knows exactly how much he earns, but almost nothing about how much he loses each month. He jokes with friends about being bad with money, but deep down, it keeps him up at night, wondering if he'll ever get ahead. He believed hard work alone would buy him freedom. But his reality is a relentless cycle of working harder just to stay afloat. John isn't lazy or reckless. He's doing what millions do, confusing effort with progress. One Friday night, after paying another late credit card fee, the one he'd planned to pay next month, John sat in his car and finally asked himself a question he'd been dodging for years. Why doesn't anything change? No matter how hard I try. He didn't know it then, but that moment would begin to crack the shell he'd built around his financial life. John's story isn't unique. It's a mirror, maybe even yours. But there's a turning point for him, and for you, if you're willing to see what he saw next. John's real problem wasn't that he wasn't earning enough. It was that he was on autopilot. And autopilot is the deadliest financial disease nobody warns you about. He thought budgeting was for obsessive people, tracking expenses was boring, and retirement planning was for later. Each harmless excuse piled up until the day he realized he'd been driving blindfolded for over a decade. Most men live exactly like this. They trust their salary will bail them out of emergencies. They expect loyalty at work to guarantee security. But behind that hope hides a truth nobody wants to face. The world doesn't care how long you've been loyal, and money never stays where it isn't watched. It leaks silently, like a dripping pipe behind a wall. You don't see it until the damage destroys everything you've built. Pause. What if your routine isn't stability, but a slow-motion collapse disguised as normal life? The viciousness of this trap isn't just ignorance, it's comfort. Doing nothing feels safer than facing the uncomfortable mess you've ignored. John learned this the hard way. He avoided his bank statements for months, only to discover too late that his stable life was a flimsy house of cards. He could have kept pretending, but pretending has an expiration date. And for most, it hits hardest when least expected. Let's unravel exactly how these hidden errors fuel that autopilot, and which one might silently destroy your freedom first. Let's start with the basics. Mistakes so common they seem harmless, but silently sabotage everything you try to build. First, not knowing precisely how much you spend each month. John thought he was average until he tracked every penny for the first time and discovered he was hemorrhaging money on things he didn't even remember buying. It's like driving a car without a dashboard. You might feel in control until the engine dies without warning. Second, living without an emergency fund. Simple truth: if you lose your job tomorrow and have zero savings, your dignity vanishes fast. John thought borrowing from friends was his contingency plan. But friends run out of patience faster than you run out of money. 6 months of your fixed costs. In a safe, accessible place, that's your buffer between calm and panic. Third, ignoring financial education. Many men dismiss learning about money, thinking it's too complicated or not for them. But ignorance is lucrative for banks, credit card companies, and the entire system that keeps you dependent. John got trapped because he thought working harder was the only skill worth mastering. He learned too late that knowing how money actually moves is what separates the free from the enslaved. Fourth, pretending debt isn't real. Debt doesn't vanish when you ignore it. It multiplies in the darkness, feeding on your silence. John used to avoid opening bills to protect his weekend mood. But the anxiety always returned on Monday, amplified by accrued interest. Confronting debt brutally, line by line, is the first act of financial courage. Nobody talks about it because it's uncomfortable. But discomfort now is cheaper than disaster later. Fifth, spending as if tomorrow is guaranteed. Most men assume they'll always have their job, their health, and a stable income. But life doesn't care about your plans. It cares about your preparation. John spent his tax refund on a new phone and a weekend getaway, thinking he'd replace the money next month. Then came a layoff, and the phone didn't pay the rent. These 5 gaps form the bedrock of financial stagnation, but they're just the beginning. What comes next is more insidious: wearing the mask of success after stemming the obvious leaks. Most men fall into traps that feel like rewards for hard work. John did, too. The 6th error is buying to impress. He thought new shoes, fancy dinners, and shiny gadgets would buy him respect. But respect bought with receipts is shallow and fleeting. He learned, painfully, that ego is the most expensive thing a man can feed, and the saddest part. While he fueled his image, his family paid the price: missed birthdays, deferred dreams, and silent anxiety at home every time a new bill arrived. 7th is living with a credit card mentality. John told himself, "I'll pay it later, no problem." 10 payments for a shirt, 12 for a TV. It felt like freedom, but it was a contract with his future self, and that future self hated him for it. If you can't buy something outright without harming your budget, you can't afford it, period. The card isn't evil. The illusion behind it is. Next is the seduction of discounts. John once boasted about a coat he got for 70% off. He didn't need a coat. He needed the feeling of saving money without actually saving money. Buying what's cheap but useless is still wasting dollars you claim you need so badly. Retailers know this, which is why clearance is the loudest word. In every storefront, then comes lifestyle inflation. A raise arrives, and so does a new car, a bigger apartment, or more expensive weekends. John's salary doubled in 5 years, but his freedom stayed frozen because each pay raise raised his spending limit. Earning more is useless if you spend. At the same reckless pace, Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in the 50s. That's not stinginess, it's strategy. Finally, confusing comfort with luxury. John thought a fancy dinner every week was self-care. But self-care that puts you deeper in debt isn't care. It's self-sabotage disguised as indulgence. Real comfort is a safe home, a healthy meal, a bed where you sleep without worrying how you'll pay for it tomorrow. Luxury is paying for the illusion that you've arrived long before you actually have. These 5 traps keep good men broke while convincing them they're living well. But the real cost only shows up when life tests your flimsy version of wealth. And that test is coming. Even when John stopped wasting money on ego traps, he still hit a wall. Because without a plan, discipline leaks through cracks you don't even see. Error 11 is living without clear financial goals. John thought having money left over at the end of the month was a goal. It's not. It's luck. A goal has a number, a timeline, and a method. Save $10,000 by December. Invest $200 with each paycheck. Pay off that debt by next summer. Without it, you drift. And drifting feels peaceful until you hit the rocks. Error 12 is trusting retirement will take care of itself. John believed Social Security would keep him afloat someday. Then he did the math and realized it barely covers basic survival. The system keeps millions believing a paycheck is forever, a pension is guaranteed, and the government won't leave them stranded. But if you wait to discover the truth at 60, there's no fixing it then. 13 is skipping the monthly budgeting ritual. John thought budgeting was tedious, a thing for spreadsheet obsessives. But a man without a budget is a man who's winging it. Winging it invites surprises, and money hates surprises. Now, at the start of each month, John writes down what comes in, what must go out, and what should stay invested. It's a map. Without it, you wander and call it freedom. 14 is depending on only one income stream. John felt secure in his corporate job until his manager called him on a Friday and ended a decade-long illusion. One source of money means one point of failure. If it dries up, your life doesn't slow down, it crashes. And when it crashes, it's not just you who falls. It's your partner who has to hold it together while you panic. Your kids who feel the tension without understanding. Your parents who worry but don't ask. A shared failure silently carried by everyone who depends on you. Today, John still has his main job, but he also freelances and invests. Multiple small streams outweigh one large river that could dry up tomorrow. 15 is never tracking your progress. For years, John told himself, "I'm probably better off than last year." But feelings lie. Numbers don't. When he started tracking his net worth monthly, the story changed. Seeing the line move or stay flat is an uncomfortable truth, but it's the only truth that matters. These 5 errors are silent killers of momentum. Fixing them doesn't guarantee overnight riches, but ignoring them guarantees you'll one day wake up shocked at how little you've actually built. And if you think those hurt, wait until you see what your own mind is doing behind your back. John thought fixing habits would be enough, but what he didn't see, and what most men never question, is how their own beliefs about money silently betray them. Error 16 is believing money is for greedy people. John grew up hearing money doesn't buy happiness or rich people are corrupt. So, every time he earned a little extra, he found ways to spend it quickly, as if holding onto it would turn him into someone he despised. The truth is, money reveals your character. It doesn't change it. Good people do more good when they're not drowning in bills. 17 is romanticizing poverty. Some wear scarcity as a badge of humility, boasting about surviving on scraps as if it's noble. John once prided himself on being the guy who makes it work with little. But poverty isn't virtue. It's a condition that punishes you and everyone who depends on you. Escaping it isn't selfish. It's responsible. 18 is believing wealth is impossible for you. John used to think riches were for trust fund babies, tech geniuses, or lucky gamblers. Ordinary guys like him, never. But wealth isn't magic. It's math. It's small choices repeated for so long that they become an unstoppable momentum. When he studied ordinary millionaires, he saw it. Consistency beats brilliance every time. 19 is fear of investing. John feared losing money, so he clung to his comfort zone, a savings account that earned less than inflation. So, while he felt safe, his money was silently shrinking. He finally faced the truth. Risk exists whether you invest or not. But knowledge turns blind risk into calculated risk, and that changes everything. 20 is waiting for the perfect time to start. John told himself he'd start investing when he got a raise, when his debts were paid, when life was stable. But there's no perfect day. There's only today and enough accumulated excuses to bury your future alive. He started with $50, just to prove to himself that action matters more than the size of the first step. These beliefs cost John years of progress, but they were only half the battle. Because even the right mindset fails without using time and money correctly. And the final traps are the cruelest for those who think they're already playing smart. John's final errors weren't about what he did wrong day to day, but what he failed to put in motion early enough. Error 21 is thinking investing is for the rich. He thought he needed thousands to start, so he waited. Meanwhile, friends who started with $50 a month were building silent snowballs. By the time John realized it, He'd lost precious years of compound interest, years you can't buy back, no matter how hard you work afterward. 22 is leaving money idle in savings. John was proud of having an emergency reserve, but he never questioned why that reserve shrank while he slept. Inflation is a slow leak in your bucket, constant, silent, relentless. Savings accounts feel safe because they're simple, but safety without growth is just slow decay. He learned to compartmentalize money. Emergency money stays liquid. Everything else must earn its keep. 23 is investing blindly when John finally started. He copied others, chased trends, and trusted tips from friends who knew as little as he did. He got burned and blamed investing instead of his ignorance. Money put to work without understanding is money on a casino table. Only education turns investing from gambling into strategy. 24 is spending investment returns too early. John celebrated small stock market gains by booking vacations. He didn't realize that spending gains kills the exponential magic of compound interest. Reinvesting is the difference between small wins and generational wealth. It's the silent engine that turns 10,000 into 100,000. But only if you leave it alone long enough. And the 25th era, the most brutal of all, is wandering through life without a long-term plan. John believed he'd tackle retirement later, focus on the present, and trust the future would be kind. But the future doesn't care about your feelings. It only rewards preparation. When he finally laid out a real plan, he saw how every choice today either buys him freedom or sells his time cheaply tomorrow. Most men never write down how they actually want life to be at 40, 50, or 60, and so life happens asterisk to asterisk them. When they wake up, they're too old to restart and too young to stop working. But you're hearing this now, so you don't have that excuse anymore. You've now seen what John ignored for years, and what millions still pretend isn't silently killing their freedom one quiet day at a time. These 25 errors don't seem deadly in isolation. One skipped budget won't ruin you. One impulsive splurge won't empty your account overnight. But together, repeated year after year, they steal decades you'll never get back. John didn't change his life because he was smarter or luckier than you. He changed because he was brutally honest with himself. He admitted he was living on autopilot, fueling his ego, hiding from numbers, trusting the system would bail him out later. The moment he faced that truth, everything changed. Not instantly, but consistently, month after month. He didn't win the lottery. He didn't launch a multi-million-dollar business. He simply stopped making excuses and started making decisions that compounded in his favor. So, the question isn't whether you'll make mistakes. You already have. The question is whether you'll keep repeating them now that you can't plead ignorance. Most men will nod, feel inspired for 5 minutes, then do nothing, and life will punish that choice sooner or later. But if you're still here, you're not like most. You're dangerous to the old you because you can't unsee what you see now. Now, pick just one of these errors, the one that burns in your gut the most, and fix it today. Not tomorrow, not when the time feels perfect. Today. Comment below which error hits you hardest and what you'll do about it. I read every comment because watching men break this cycle is the only reason I make these videos. Remember, knowledge that stays untouched is just another trap. Use it, or keep paying for it with your time, your peace, and your freedom. John woke up before it was too late. Now it's your turn. If you stayed to this very last minute, you've already proven you're not the type of man who sleeps through life. On autopilot, you're here because something deep down knows you deserve more than endless bills, silent anxiety, and a future that looks exactly like your past. So do it now. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 25 errors you've just tolerated. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. If you found value here, share this with someone trapped in the same pitfalls. One uncomfortable truth at the right time can save a lifetime of regrets. You've wasted enough time hoping money will just sort itself out. Now build a life you don't need to escape. See you in the next one.